Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was born a low-class devil before the Great Devil War. Realizing how the devil class system subjugated devils of lower class, Naruto will represent his origins as he rises and expose the corrupted system that he lives in, and he'll do it without the high-class devils even realizing it. Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 11, if you're reading this. 2 days later. Kuo Academy. Phew. Finally finished. Shouted Yo as he took in a few deep breaths. He finished his route that Anna forced him to run every day, and was taking a break right in front of Kuo Academy's school gate. Sigh, now I've got to deliver that message. I hope the school won't mind me walking on campus with my tracksuit on. A light bulb went off in Yo's head. Oh yeah. I can just do that, he said as he walked into a secluded alleyway. Yo walked back on campus with Kuo Boy's uniform, only he had his uniform shirt open, similar to how Issei has his open, with an orange shirt beneath it. It was the end of the day and students were filling the school grounds, so he tried not to bring any attention to himself. However, that didn't work at all as his headphones and orange shirt stood out in the big crowd of people, and a lot of people were looking at him. Is he a new student? I don't know. I haven't seen him around before. He's cute. I wonder if he has a girlfriend. He's wearing sandals. That's weird. Maybe I should introduce myself. I've got to get out of here, Yo said with a panicked face as he started to pick up his pace. If Anna were to find out that one of the girls here approached him, he wouldn't hear the end of it. The pathway to the old schoolhouse was clear once he was out of the main schoolyard, but he made sure to check his surroundings before entering the building, hoping that there weren't any crazy girls following him. Sigh. I'm glad I don't go to school anymore, said Yo as he closed the door behind him. He remembered the layout of the old school building from the last time when his master's peerage had to come here for the rating game against Riser Phoenix. Forgetting any proper way of entrance, Yo opened the big doors which led to the Occult Research Club's room of gathering. Anyone home? He asked as he stepped inside. Yo? Issei said from his position on the couch. All eyes went to the Asakura as he scratched his head awkwardly. Yup. What's going on, Issei? He said as he made his way in. Great, but what are you doing here? Issei asked with a raised eyebrow. Yes, and why did you barge in here without telling us you were coming? Ria said with her eyebrow twitching. It was like everyone from that peerage didn't respect her and Sona's territory at all. Hold on, said Yo as he reached inside of his pocket and pulled out some note cards. Alrighty here, ahem. Rias Gremory, aka the Princess, aka Mrs. HIV-. Mrs. HIV. Shouted Rias as she slammed her hand on her desk. Is this some type of joke? I see. Kisame wrote that on the note card, see? Said Yo as he pointed to the note card. When he called you and Akino prostitutes, he came up with the nicknames MRS, HIV, and Mrs. STD. Lightning crackled around Akino as she started laugh evilly. Fufufu, maybe we should pay Mr. Kisame a visit. We should. Rias growled. Well, you can because you two are invited for the fight tomorrow, said Yo. The fight? Kiba asked with curiosity. Yeah, let me keep reading. Okay, Rias Gremory, aka the Princess. I'll just skip over the other name. Has been invited to the fight between Naruto Bael and Asakura. We shall have it at the same place where you fought Issei Hyuta 2 days ago. Bring your peerage with you. We'll also be inviting Sona Citri and her peerage as well. Yo finished. Naruto-sama and How are having a fight. Issei yelled, what's going on? There was a misunderstanding a couple of days ago. How left? Naruto-sama told him to come back in 4 days so they could settle it. answered Yo. And what was this misunderstanding? Asked Kiba. How tried to kill Naruto-sama? Yo said regretfully. Wow, why would he do that? You said that how had respect for Naruto-sama. Why would he try and do something like that? Shouted Issei in anger. He remembered when Yo told Issei how's history with Naruto, and that how viewed Naruto as his true parent. So why would he do something like that? How is stupid? Yo shook his head in disappointment. He doesn't like weak things, and seeing Naruto-sama in the state he's in, it was like the image how it built up for Naruto-sama came crashing down. And how does your master feel about how? Rias asked with interest. He's smiling about it, like how's betrayal didn't affect him at all. It doesn't surprise me, Naruto-sama has gone through a lot himself, more than most people. Well, how can your master fight if he is bedridden? Asked Rias. I don't know. We still don't know a lot about Naruto-sama as it is. I'm still surprised that Naruto-sama's a blonde. You don't find that a lot around here. Said Yo. Nevertheless, you all are invited to the fight. Bring your own snacks. I'll inform the student council now. See you there. Yo said with a wave as he disappeared. Student council room. Oh, this room is different. Sona swirled her chair around the instant she heard someone behind her. Summoning her magic on instinct, a barrage of water needles lodged themselves at her assailant. Eh? Why'd you do that? The voice was coming from the middle of the room now. She heard a few gasps from her peerage members, causing her to turn around to see that their intruder wasn't hit by her needles at all. What? She growled out as she took in the boy's image. How? No. That's my brother. You've got a good aim, by the way. Yo said with a cheeky grin. Sona's peerage surrounded Yo, protecting their king. Why are you all surrounding me? I didn't do anything. He said nonchalantly. But I thought Sona looked behind her, where Yo once was, to see that her water needles had pierced the group picture of the student council that hung behind her. How did he move so fast? Aren't you the guy that Issei talks about? Yo, right? Saji asked with narrowed eyes. Yeah, that's me. And I come in peace. Yo said with a yawn. I can't wait to take a shower and get a nap in. Why are you here? Tsubaki asked / demanded an answer. It was very disrespectful for someone to enter their territory unannounced, especially by sneaking up on their king. I came to deliver a message from my master. I didn't mean to spook you guys. Yo said with a frown. You guys are so uptight. President, I believe that Yo isn't a threat. Issei talks highly of him, and he shouldn't be a problem. Saji said while lowering his stance. Yo smiled at Saji in agreement. I like you now. You should hang out with me, Lee, and Issei sometime. Yo said as he put a hand on Saji's shoulder. See, I like you already. Yo said with a laugh. Everyone started to ease out of their stances, as Yo seemed less of a threat by the second. Well then. Yo, what are you doing here unannounced, I may add? Said Sona as she pushed up her glasses. I have a message for you. Said Yo as he reached into his pocket for another note card. I heard you, and how got beef? Wanna see him get his ass kicked? No, I think Kisame wrote this as well. How? I haven't seen him in a while. Sona said with a frown. Things were still rocky between the two after she found out about that he and Orochimaru were manipulating her and Rias. Yeah, here's the real note card. You, Sona Citri, along with your peerage, are invited for the fight between Naruto Bael and Hawasakura tomorrow on the outskirts of the city west of here. Bring your own snacks. Rias Gremory and her peerage are also invited. He finished. Who is Naruto Bael? Asked Tsubaki. My master. Yo said like it was sweat drop. Weren't you informed about what's going on? I was, but I haven't informed my peerage yet. Said Sona Rias just told me everything today, during a quick meeting at lunch. Oh, well, you can tell you peerage members what's going on then. I'll see you all tomorrow. He said with a wave and disappeared in a magic circle. Naruto's peerage house. I don't want grapes. I want pickles. Shouted Naruto. Naruto-sama, pickles won't help you get better. At least grapes are good for you and taste decent. Said Orochimaru with a sigh as he held out a bowl of grapes, but Naruto was turning his head away from it with a childish pout. Naya, snaky. If he doesn't want the grapes, then get them out of here. Kuroka said with a hiss. She was beside Naruto, lying next to him in his bed. Orochimaru rolled his eyes while setting the bowl down. Honestly, master, I don't see how you plan to fight how when you can hardly even move. Don't worry about that, Orochi. Everything will work out fine. Did you get my wheelchair I asked for? Naruto asked. Yes. It's sitting downstairs for you. Orochimaru confirmed. Great. Man, I can't wait to fight tomorrow. It's been a while since I've stretched these limbs of mine. Said Naruto. Do you have a plan on fighting how, Naya? Kuroka asked with cute head tilt. Not really. I'll just respond accordingly. I've got to show my peerage members that I'm strong too. Naruto said as he tried, and failed, to flex his muscles. You shouldn't even be moving now. You need to conserve your energy, Naruto-sama. We still need to give you your daily doses of nutrients, so your body can get better. Said Orochimaru as he opened up the top drawer of Naruto's nightstand, which had his shots for insulin, iron, etc. Naruto groaned. Can't we do that tomorrow? I hate feeling like I can't take care of myself. It's only for now, Naruto. You'll be better soon, Naya. Kuroka said with a smile. I guess. The Bael said with a sigh. I need to get out of this bed soon, but I can hardly move my legs. This is maddening. You were in a seal for over 500 years, Naruto-sama. I'm sure, yo. Don't remind me of that fucking seal. Both Kuroka and Orochimaru were a little surprised at the sudden change of Naruto's attitude. Naruto wasn't glaring at Orochimaru, but he was staring at Orochimaru with intense eyes. Orochimaru's stomach churned as a wave of insecurity moved through his body. Why yes, master. Forgive me. Orochimaru said with a bow. What is the pressure I'm feeling? All he's doing is staring at me, and this unsettling feeling is taking over my body. Naruto. Kuroka placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, causing him to turn to her. He gave her the same stare he gave Orochimaru, but was weakened when he saw that her eyes were filled with concern and worry. He sighed and gave his queen a small smile. Sorry about that, my protege. I'm fine. He said calmly. I just want to make sure, Naya. She whispered. Sorry, Orochimaru, but I hated that seal and I don't like being reminded of it. It isn't your fault because you didn't know how I felt about it. Forgive me. Naruto said to Orochimaru. It's understandable, Naruto-sama. We don't have to talk about this if you don't want to. But I feel like I should go gather everyone. I'm sure they have their own questions. Are you sure, Naruto-sama? Asked Orochimaru. Yeah, I am. This was long overdue. He said with a smile. Orochimaru nodded and left the room. After a couple of minutes later, all of Naruto's peerage members surrounded his bed at attention. Are you feeling better, Naruto-sama? Asked Lee with worry evident in his voice. Yeah, I am. I'm taking it day by day, you know? Though, I can't wait to get out of this bed. He said with a laugh. Do you need something from us, because I was in the middle of this good dream? Stop being disrespectful, you illogical idiot. Orochimaru said with a glare aimed at Kisame. It's all right. I'm not mad at Kisame for being himself. It's one of the main reasons why I reincarnated him after Naruto was cut off by a massive cough fit. Everyone jumped out of their seats and surrounded Naruto, like they did when they brought him in the night of his revival. Naruto-sama, are you okay? Shouted Lee. Kuroka hugged onto Naruto and chakra surrounded them both. Naruto's coughing fit lessened over time, before it finally stopped. I'm alright. He wheezed out, don't worry about me. I really think that you need to rest, Naruto-sama. Yo said with concern, you don't look good. I don't feel like sleeping. I want to talk with my family. Everyone nodded and slowly made their way back to their seats. I know you all have questions. Questions that I can now answer. What the fuck is up with you and Pickles? Kisame asked instantly. Anna and Orochimaru glared at Kisame for his tone and language, but they were also interested in his obsession with Pickles as well. Oh, that, said Naruto with a weak laugh. It'll take a while for me to answer it, but it'll be worth the wait. Naruto sighed before continuing. While I was sealed, there were two places where my awareness could be. One was me having a conscious body, similar to how we all are now, but instead of being able to move around, there were shackles around my feet and hands with chains that outstretched into darkness. I never knew where they ended, but I couldn't even get up to see where because my body felt so dizzy. And I was lying on my side, like how a child sleeps. My body was crouched together, there was nothing all around me. I couldn't move, but I always felt dizzy while conscious, like I was about to throw up but couldn't. That's disturbing. Anna muttered stoically, but she was truly worried about her king. Where was the second place your conscious could be? In my subconscious, of course. He said with a smile. I was inside of my mind, and that place wasn't any fun either. Sure, I could move around in there, but I couldn't do anything else. It was a white space. There was also a state where I just slept for long periods of time, and I'm talking decades apiece, and I didn't have to sit for time to pass, but yeah, those were my options, darkness, nothingness, or slumber. The only thing I could do was think, but the isolation started to get to me over the years. I desperately tried to find a way out, but couldn't, which brings us to the Pickles. Aha! Said Kuroka, fully focused with Naruto's story. See, I was sitting in my subconscious, and I thought back to my war days. Devils came up with pickles way before humans did. I remember some of my friends would eat pickles, but I never had one before. I heard that they were good, but I never had the chance to eat one. So, I imagined what it would be like eating one, and poof, a pickle appeared in front of me. A pickle, really? Kisame said, slightly disappointed that this was the answer he had been waiting so long for. But that's not it, said Naruto with a laugh. See, I grabbed the pickle and took a bite of it, and guess what happened? What, master? Asked Lee. Nothing. Hey. Nothing? Asked Kuroka. Exactly. Nothing. Because I didn't know how pickles taste, I couldn't imagine what they actually tasted like. Isn't that incredible? Ha 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 ha. That's torture, ha ha ha. Naruto-sama, I think you need to calm down. Yo said as they watched their master laugh for no reason. And that's when it happened. I finally realized what they did to me. Ha ha ha. They locked me up with my own thoughts. My memories haunted me for centuries. My mother. My father. Ha 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 ha. Oh, how Seraphol would laugh at this. Naruto-sama, calm down. Shouted Orochimaru, but Naruto continued laughing. Oh, the times I had in there. Going crazy. Over a pickle? Hilarious. Ah ha 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 ha. Naruto. Kuroka placed her forehead against his as her chakra surrounded the both of them. Ha 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 ha. What a joke. He ha 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 ha. He. Naruto's eyes started to close until he fully succumbed to the peace that Kuroka's chakra provided. Whoever did this to him, I'm going to kill them slowly. Kisame said with a clenched fist. He went crazy. That's what isolation does to people. Orochimaru said with a sigh. He's gone through something that no one can relate to. Kuroka could only look down upon the man that she loved. He was going through all of this? How did he even find the patience to take care of me? Especially after what I put him through. They are going to die when I see them. Anna growled out uncharacteristically. The Citri. Seraphol Leviathan. Hold on now, Anna. Everyone in the room jumped when Naruto spoke. His eyes were clearly closed, but he was still talking. Let's not rush things now. How are you still talking? I put you to sleep, Naya? Kuroka asked with confusion. It's something I learned while inside the seal. Naruto said, his eyes still closed. Technically, I'm still asleep, but I have supreme control over my body. My body is resting, but my mind will forever be active. I meditated in that seal, learning about myself, about how my body works. With literally no distractions, nothing to see, nothing to hear, I became one with myself, allowing me to do things like this, along with other abilities. Like what? Asked Orochimaru, very interested in learning about the body. You see my heart monitor over there? Said Naruto, pointing to his monitor. Everyone nodded and also kept their surprise to themselves. His eyes were closed, but he pointed out the heart monitor amongst all the other machines in the room. Beep. 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 Now, one of the abilities granted with supreme control is that I can do things like hee. Stop my heart. Beep. V. What the fuck? Shouted Orochimaru as he jumped out of his seat and ran towards the machine. What is happening? He yelled, ignoring that he wasn't acting like himself. Calm down, Orochimaru. I did it. Naruto smiled at the Snake Man. See, watch this. Beep. Beep, 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 beep. This is incredible. Orochimaru muttered as he listened to Naruto change the pace of his heartbeat. And it's all true. Said Naruto as he opened his yes, revealing that they were bloodshot. I can control where I want to add my blood as well. Well. I can literally control my adrenaline if you think about it. Now this ability isn't safe, but it'll come in handy when I want to add some more strength to my body parts during a specific situation. You shouldn't do that, Naruto. You look freaky. Kuroka said with a frown. Sure thing, my protege. He said with a smile. Naruto's heart monitor started to beep at a fast pace again, but the blood was draining from Naruto's eyes. His heart rate calmed down when all the blood was gone. See? Nice and blue, hee hee. Naruto-sama. I have a question as well. Lee yelled. And what could that be? Asked Naruto with a head tilt, which Kuroka mentally swooned over at how cute he looked. How did your orbs come out of the seal? The beast asked with interest. That is a good question, Lee. While I was inside, the most amazing thing happened. I found a hole. A hole? Lee asked with interest. Yes, a hole. One day in the darkness where my body was conscious, my body flipped, like something was moving me around. I came to find out that this was Tannen's fault. He found my seal and picked me up. Then, he tried to open the seal with his magic, but it didn't work. However, I already weakened the seal before I was locked up, so his magic messed with the atmosphere around me. It's still hard to explain, but I'm glad he was there. Anyway, I'm staring at this hole, and it was like looking out at space. So, I concentrated my magic for like a week or something. Time wasn't really something I could keep up with in there. Then I came up with my astral form. Using that, I sent my conscious into it, and my orb went through the hole. Next thing I know, I'm on top of a perch in Tannen's cave. It was the first time I saw actual color in years. Incredible. So, what did you do then? Asked Yo. I went and gained knowledge. The Bael answered. I read up on everything I could, using my orbs to travel the world and underworld, learning about almost everything. My main focus was on magic and the body, since I wanted to better myself while locked up. I couldn't really train inside of my subconscious because everything would have gone the way I wanted to. May you explain how that works? Orochimaru asked. Sure thing. See, if I were to train inside of my mind, it wouldn't really be effective because real-world applications wouldn't fit in there. For example, if I were to read up on a spell I wanted to learn. I read about it and try it out in my subconscious. However, since it is my subconscious, I would have imagined me actually mastering the technique when I really didn't. It's kinda hard to explain. It's like if a kid were to dream that he could lift 1,000 pounds. He can't do it in real life, but in his dreams, he can do anything. He explained. Ah, I see. So, in a sense, it's like you couldn't even trust your mind because the training you would have done and it would have been manipulated in your favor. Said Orochimaru. Yup. That's why I used my orbs to train. I'd travel to secluded area on Earth or the underworld and train my abilities. It was harder than you think, because I had to push out a lot of magic out of that tiny little hole, but it worked. Naruto said with a laugh. You're a genius, Naya. Said Kuroka as she hugged Naruto closer to her. No wonder you said those things that didn't make sense a lot. You were just being smarter than me, Naya. Yup. Naruto is very smart. He said with cheeky grin. Any more questions? What do you plan on doing with Hao? Asked Anna stoically. Naruto gave his bishop a closed-eye grin. Something exciting. Hee ha, I'm hungry. Well, you still have these grapes here. Ugh, hi. Can I try something that used to be alive? Naruto said with a groan. I need some meat. I need. His eyes lit up with stars. Ramen. Night. Kuroka was smiling as she made her way back upstairs. Anna had made Naruto some ramen after the conversation they had with each other, before letting him rest early for the day. He spent a lot of energy talking, so he was sleepy by the time he was finished eating. Kuroka enjoyed feeding Naruto his ramen, because it made her feel like a wife taking care of her sick husband. She blushed at the thought, but her happy face quickly turned sour when she thought back on the outburst he had during their conversation. He didn't tell me of his struggles that he had while inside of that seal. He would always say that he was okay, but he was really suffering. I don't know what I'll do when I see that stupid, ugly bitch. I don't even know how I'll react when I see the younger sister tomorrow. She yelled in her mind, talking about Serafal and Sona. She shook her head and rid herself of those thoughts. She didn't want to be around Naruto while she was mad. He needed someone to support him while he was weak, so she had to keep her emotions in check. She opened the door to his room and stretched her arms out with a yawn. Are you sleeping yet, Naruto? She said after her yawn. She opened her eyes. Naruto wasn't there. Panic filled Kuroka's being as she looked around the room in a rush. The covers and pillow from the bed were gone and none of his machines were missing. Naruto! She shouted as she opened the bathroom door, but he wasn't there as well. Her ears twitched when she heard a noise coming from the closet. Moving at blinding speeds, Kuroka ran to and opened the closet door. Inside of it was Naruto, the comforter covering his body, while his head was resting on his pillows. He was staring at her with the same blue eyes that she had come to love in only a few days. Naruto? She asked with confusion. What are you doing in here, Naya? Sleeping. He muttered silently, but she heard him. But why in here? You have a perfectly good bed in there, Naya. She said as she pointed to the bed in his room. The walls are closer in here. He whispered. I don't understand. She said back. While I was in the seal, even though I didn't know where the darkness stopped, I always felt like I was in a tight space. It's what I'm used to. Kuroka's ears slouched as sadness overwhelmed her. Being in that seal did more damage than she thought. Naruto, you aren't in that seal anymore. You're free. Please, let me help you back into your bed. I'm worried about you. He saw the concern in her eyes before sighing. All right, but it took all the energy I had to drag myself in here. I can't move. I've got it, Naya. She said as she dropped down to her knees and put her hands under his arms. Slowly, she lifted him off the ground and placed him back in bed. She returned the pillows and his cover back to the bed, before climbing in with him. You're going to be okay, Naruto. I'm here for you. She muttered into his hair as she held him close. Her chakra surrounded him again, soothing him. In a matter of seconds, Naruto was sleeping soundly. I won't put the machines back into you for a while, Naya. She whispered with tears running down her eyes. I know you don't like them. Her body started to shake as her emotions got the better of her. Her tears were like a small river, falling down her cheeks and into her hair. She gripped him tighter, using him as her own teddy bear as he crying increased. They won't. Hick, they won't hurt you. Anymore. She whispered to him one last time before crying herself to sleep. Naruto smiled in his sleep and unconsciously leaned into the Nakomata's touch. Morning. Naruto moaned when sunlight hit his closed eyes. Turning away from the strong beams, he slowly opened his eyes to see his machines were turned off. Nothing was making any noises, and he didn't have any tubes in his arm or his chest. He also didn't sleep with his breathing machine, which was a good sign for his recovery. Kuroka. He whispered. Kuroka, who was still asleep and hugging his body, ears twitched at the new noise but didn't wake up. Kuroka. He said a little louder, but she still didn't hear him. He sighed and tried to move, but Kuroka's weight was making that an impossible task. She was hugging the left side of his body, with his left arm trapped between her thighs. He tried to get loose, but she was clamped down onto him. Kuroka, I need to go to the bathroom, he said when he tried to shake out of her grip. Kuroka's ears perched up at the noise and her eyes slowly opened as well, revealing her yellow orbs of beauty. She lowered herself down to Naruto, now eye level with each other, and cuffed his chin. She smiled at him weakly. Good morning, Naya. She whispered, did you say something? Mornin', and I said I need to go the bathroom. The bathroom? You mean you have to poop now? She asked with a little bit of excitement. Yeah. He said, wary of her excitement. I didn't think that pooping was a good thing. No, it means that your body is getting better, silly. She said with a laugh, I'll help you up. She made her way off the bed before walking to the other side to pick him up. What time is it? He asked. Kuroka checked his digital clock on the wall. 7:24, Naya. You're up earlier than usual. She moved the cover from over his body, revealing his bare chest and orange gym shorts. She picked him up bridal style and slowly marched her way into the bathroom. You've been crying, Naya? She said as she looked down at him with confusion. There are dry tear marks on your eyes. You've been crying recently, he said again. Kuroka looked at herself in the mirror to see that there were 2 dried tear marks coming from her eyes. Oh, Naya. I don't know how that got there. Maybe I was having a bad dream last night. I don't remember it too well, Naya. She lied hastily. She didn't need him to be worried for her right now. He needed all his energy focused on getting better. She sat Naruto down on the toilet bowl before a blush filled her cheeks. You don't need any help, do you? She leaned down a bit in front of him, flashing her bountiful chest at him. I can help you, Naya. Naruto answered her with a closed-eye smile. Nope, it's all right. I got it. Oh, well, I'll be outside then. She quickly ran back into his room and shut the door behind her, confusing the blonde Bael. Stupid, stupid, stupid kitty. Kuroka berated herself mentally a few times while clawing at her hair. Why were you trying to play seductress now? He's crippled. He needs help living, not trying to get off. Stupid, stupid, stupid. A knock on Naruto's bedroom door brought her out of her thoughts. She opened it to see Orochimaru, dressed in his usual brown tunic and weird purple robe. Good morning. Is he awake? Yeah. She said as she entered the hallway with him and closed the door behind her. I need to talk with you real quick, Naya. Orochimaru nodded at her, giving her the signal to continue. Last night, when I was about to go to bed, I found Naruto inside of his closet. He crawled out of his bed and wanted to sleep in there. Why did he do that? Asked the Snake Man. He said that the walls were closer in there, he felt like he was trapped again. That put Orochimaru on edge. He's worse than I thought he was. Would it be possible for him to be outside more? He can't stay huddled up in this house. He needs to be outside. She said with all seriousness in her voice. Agreed. Staying inside won't help his mental state. He'll have his fight with How today, but we'll keep him outside for as long as possible. I assume that if he crawled into the closet, he cut his food and water tube, along with his blood tubes off, right? Yes, Naya. When I saw them, they were covered with bandages. It must have hurt, but he hasn't complained. He's currently in the bathroom. Orochimaru sighed and ran a hand through his hair. All right. I'll change his bandages before the fight. For now, I'll get his wheelchair. You make sure he finishes in the bathroom and bring him out here, said Orochimaru as he walked back down the hallway. The Nekisha sighed as she closed the door behind her. Why is my life so stressful, Naya? She said to herself. Kuroka, I'm finished. She heard Naruto say through the bathroom door. She entered it quietly and walked over to him. He had his shorts already pulled up. Everything went okay? She asked nicely. Yup, but it took me a while to figure out how to poop again, he said with a cheeky grin. Been a while, you know? I don't know, Naya. She said with a giggle before picking him up bridal style again. Can you reach the sink to wash your hands like this? Yup, yup, yup. He said as he stretched over the sink and turned the water on. He applied soap to his hands and washed them thoroughly. Been a while since I did that too. So that's what water feels like. Kuroka rolled her eyes and smiled at Naruto's rambling. He finished washing and drying his hands, and Kuroka brought him back into the bedroom and laid him back down. Snakey is coming with your wheelchair for you. You're getting out of this room today, Naya. Oh yeah. I forgot about the fight with Hao. I can't wait for that. A wave of uncertainty entered Kuroka's body. Are you sure that you should be fighting so early into your recovery, Naya? You can hardly move in the first place. Don't you trust me, my protege? Naruto's eyes met Kuroka. She tensed up a little as the blue eyes seemed to be dissecting her without any problem. After everything we've been through? Her tenseness slowly loosened up as she returned the smile Naruto was giving her. I do. Good, then you should know that everything is going to work out, just like they usually do. He replied. I need to change clothes though. Another knock came from the door. Kuroka opened it and Orochimaru entered with a wheelchair. Good to see you up, master. I hope your slumber was well. It was. I was very comfy. He said with a smile. Thanks for the wheelchair, but I need to put on some real clothes before I get in it. Understood. Orochimaru said with a bow before opening up one of the drawers with clothes. And Lee went out to buy for Naruto. I'm not the best when it comes to color coordination or fashion, but I believe this should be reasonable. The pale man pulled out a pair of black sweatpants along with an orange shirt with a red fire symbol in the middle. Oh, that's perfect. He. Naruto laughed. Kuroka frowned at him, but she made sure that he didn't see it. Well, I leave you boys to it. I'll start breakfast. Kuroka said before leaving the room. She walked down the hallway until she made it to a specific door. She knocked on it loudly 3 times and waited for an answer. The door opened 3 seconds later, and Lee jumped out with nothing but his boxers on. Hello. Ah. Kuroka-sama. Is there something I can do for you? Why yes there is, Naya. Kuroka's face shifted into a troubled look and her eyes started to water. I wanted to make Naruto and everyone in the house breakfast, but then I remembered that I can't cook. I'm so useless, Naya. I can do it for you. Lee shouted with hearts in his eyes. I'll change really quickly. He shut the door and not even a second later, he opened again, dressed in his usual green jumpsuit. I shall make a delicious meal for everyone. He shouted as he ran downstairs. Kuroka laughed to herself, glad her plan worked. Sucker. She muttered while she followed Lee downstairs to claim the television for herself. Noon. What the fuck is this? Kisame grumbled from his recliner. Catfish, Naya. Kuroka responded. She claimed a wall couch for herself and used it as a bed. At first I thought the show was actually about catfish and catfish taste good, Naya, but then I found out it's about people dating people they don't know. Who the fuck would do that? And how does that even work? Kisame said louder. People on the internet do it. Said Yo. Anna was cuddled up to him on a different couch, while he had his arm around her. It's great for people to talk with each other if there is a long distance separating the two partners. Are you ready to find out if your online girlfriend is who she says she is? Asked one of the men in charge of the show. The group was behind a door to a house where their online love was waiting. I am. Let's do it. Another guy replied as they entered the house. So, they're trying to find out if the other person is real or some shit like that? Asked Kisame as he munched on the popcorn that Lee handed to him. Okay, I can dig it. The group walked into the house to see an ugly girl with most of her teeth missing from her mouth. Hey Chad. Oh hell no. Shouted the man as he walked out of the house. I don't know who she is. But Chad. The girl followed him outside. You promised to take care of my 8 kids. Whoa. Shouted Kisame as he laughed out loud. That bitch looks like that bottom of my ass, ha ha ha. And my ass is blue. Naya. I'll never understand people. Kuroka laughed. Well, that's interesting. Naruto said from his wheelchair. He was parked right beside Kuroka's couch, and had a direct spot in front of the television. Did she say 8 children? She did. Orochimaru said with a disgusted face. I'm glad I'm not human anymore. This show is outrageous. These people could be spending their time learning about science and trying to benefit society. Such stupidity all bunched into an hour and 30 minutes. I pray that the shark idiot lands on this show one day. Anna said as she snuggled closer to Yo. And I hope you die by being eaten by tigers, but we can't have everything in life, right? Kisame countered. Now, let's say nice things about each other, hee. Yo said with an awkward laugh. I'm still trying to understand what cable is. Muttered Naruto as he scratched his head in thought. What else is on, Kuroka? Anna asked. Let's see, Naya. The Nekishu as she pressed the guide button. The Jerry Springer Show? No, everyone but the confused Naruto replied. The Parent Trap? No. Shaman King? No. Hold on, said Yo, that sounds pretty goo. The Notebook, Naya? Hell nah. Shouted Kisame. Avatar? Which one? Asked Anna. The Legend of Korra? No, everyone said instantly. Rush Hour? Everyone, even Orochimaru, grinned at each other. What's Rush Hour? Naruto said with a head tilt. 20 minutes later. Ha 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 ha. Laughed Naruto from his wheelchair. This movie is amazing. And there are 2 more of them after this. Lee said excitedly. This might be better than the purge. Kisame laughed hilariously. There was a knock on the door, but only Orochimaru and Anna heard. Orochimaru stood up from his seat and walked to the front the door. He opened it as his usual neutral face was instantly changed into a frown. You're here early. I was told to be here in 4 days. He didn't give me a time to be here. I guess it was just another one of his slip-ups. Who's at the door, Orochimaru? Naruto's voice rang out. It's Hao, your bishop. He answered plainly. Hao had really pushed his buttons with his stunt with Naruto. The amount of respect Orochimaru had for Hao previously transformed into a hatred for the older Asakura. He didn't want this boy anywhere near his master. Ah. Tell him to come in. Come in. Naruto said excitedly, like it wasn't 4 days ago that he could have lost his life to Hao. Orochimaru hissed slightly at Hao and let him in. Hao entered the house, donned in his usual brown tunic that covered his body, and walked into the living room. He was met with a barrage of ki from everyone except Naruto and Yo. Naruto looked at his bishop with happiness, while Yo stared at Hao in worry. Hello, Hao. Naruto said with a smile. You're in a wheelchair. Hao muttered with disinterest. How do you expect to fight me while in a wheelchair? Don't worry about it, Hao. Why so grumpy? Wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Asked Naruto. At least I can get out of the bed. Hao answered back. Kuroka hissed at Hao in anger. I'm really close to tearing you to shreds. That's my line, cat bitch. Kisame said, stroking Samahata slowly. The sword was shrieking at Hao lowly, just waiting for the right opportunity to attack. No. I don't you all to fight. Let's leave that for later. Hao, take a seat please. We were watching this amazing movie called Rush Hour. You'll enjoy it. Naruto said with kindness. Hao rolled his eyes before sitting next to his brother. Anna released Yo and stared at Hao with annoyance and disdain, not liking his presence so close to her, but especially Yo. Hello, brother. Hao said to his younger twin. Yo's body started to twitch a little. He looked away from Hao and paid his attention to the paused TV. Hi. Was Yo's response. Hao narrowed his eyes somewhat at his brother before leaning back into his seat. Alright, that's what I'm talking about. My protege, may you please play the movie now? Said Naruto. Sure. Kuroka's eyes were still set on Hao, but she grabbed the remote and pressed play, continuing the movie. Naruto was the only person to laugh as the movie continued to go on. A few hours later. West Kuo outskirts. Rias in her peerage appeared at the soon-to-be battlefield. Rias' eyes perked up when she saw that Sona and her peerage were already there. Seems like you took your time getting here. Sona said while crossing her arms over her chest. Forgive us, but Kaneko wanted to buy a few snacks before arriving. She answered. Meanwhile, Kaneko was silently munching on a king-sized chocolate bar. While I'm not going to lie and say that this fight hasn't interested me, I don't know it's smart for a king to fight one of their members. Who would do such an idiotic thing? Don't you think that'll cause more harm than good? Asked the Citri. I don't know. Ria said with a sweat drop. Issei overheard Sona and sweat dropped as well. Maybe that's how they operate. You know how boys are, she sang sweet fully while rubbing back of her neck with an awkward smile. Sona raised an eyebrow at Ria's demeanor but didn't say anything else. Issei walked over to Saji, who was sitting on top of a cooler chest with a soda in his hand. Yo, Saji. Hey, Issei. What's going on? He asked. The two boys shook hands and Issei joined Saji on top of the cooler chest. Nothing really. Everything has been going smoothly ever since Bucho and I had our spat. he said with a shrug, and I'm not too sure about this fight. I'm friends with both guys, but I can't help and get angry at how for doing what he did. Sounds crazy to me, all of it. A bishop trying to kill his king? Sounds like stray devil behavior. You sure that this guy How is who you thought he was? Asked Saji, taking a sip of his soda. I don't know anymore. I know one thing for sure though. Yo must be hurting from all of this bullshit. His brother tried to kill his master. I know he's torn on about this whole thing, said Issei sadly. The two continued to talk between each other for a while before a magic circle appeared. From it came How Asakura with a glare centered on his face. Some of the younger devils flinched at the power rolling off of the older Asakura, but Rias approached him. She was starting to get used to being hit with a lot of Ki from members of Naruto's peerage, so she was handling the pressure better than she used to. How? She said, crossing her arms and putting more weight on one of her legs. It's been a while. It has. I wasn't told that we'd have an audience, but I should have suspected that he'd do something like this, he said with a grunt. His frown slowly changed into a smirk as he spoke. You still pissed off that we used you for so long? It seems like his plan to trade for Issei has failed since he's still with you. Yes, I am pissed off, but I've come to accept it, she said with a hair flip. I can just use the fact that Issei decided to stay with me against you and Orochimaru in any of our future arguments. How chuckled at the Gremory heiress. Seems like you're learning how to counter-argue. I'm sure Orochimaru has already complimented you on this. He has. She said with a small smile. But what is going on with you and your master? Why would you try to kill him? Yes. Please explain to me as well how, said Sona, approaching the two with Tsubaki in tow. Sona, he muttered, it really has been a while. I see you still hold distrust for me as well. I do. A lot of it, she said easily, her glasses gleaming in the sun. You manipulate me and Rias, and now I hear that you're trying to kill your master. If you were in my peerage, I would have labeled you a stray devil without hesitation. I'm sure you would, he said with a smirk, but that's not how my king works. He'd want to reach with the good inside of person and all of that mess. He believes in people more than he should. So what do you plan on doing here? What will this fight accomplish for you? Asked Sona with a glare. The remainder of my life, actually, he said with a shrug. If he beats me, I'll stay, but I'm going to fight him like he is an enemy. I'm going to enter this battle with the intent to kill him. You can't do that, shouted Rias in shock. He's hurt. Cripple. How can he even fight in the first place? He's in the wheelchair now, if that makes you feel any more comfortable, he said with a laugh. You think that's funny? Growled Rias. In her opinion, How is starting to look a lot like Riser. Sorry, little girl, but you don't know my master, said How with all seriousness. He'll find a way to fight. He always has a plan. This fight was probably his plan. He turned away from the two and walked towards the middle of the field. It's just that this time, I'll be the one to finish it. He's insane, said Sona, glaring at Hao's retreating form. I don't understand why his king hasn't labeled him a stray yet. When I met their king a few days ago, he seemed so nice. He tried to talk to me and Issei even though it was potentially harmful for him. I guess he just believes in the people that he revived, said Rias. Not too long after Rias said her finishing remarks, Naruto and the rest of peerage appeared. Naruto was looking around fervently with the face of a kid in the candy store. Man, look at all these colors. Stupendous, hee. He giggled. Orochimaru sighed and pushed Naruto to the waving redhead. Hello, Naruto-sama, she said with a bow. It's nice to meet you. Ah. The childish Gremory. He giggled. Ria's smile flipped into a frown. He. Sorry, I'm just kidding. Nice to see you again, Rias. How was school today? It was quite boring, to be honest. She answered. I was anticipating this fight all day. It really had me distracted. I can atone for that, said Orochimaru with his raspy voice. She wasn't paying attention in class at all. You're lucky that I didn't hand out any work today. You have schoolwork, nasty, Naya, said Kuroka, stepping up to Naruto's side. Alarms went off instantly and Sona's head. Your Kuroka, the SS class stray devil. The ex-SS class stray devil, Naya, she said with a wink. I'm a good girl now. Kuroka's eyes darted around the field until they landed onto the similar eyes of her little sister Naya. Chiron. Kaneko jumped up from her seat on the ground and hid behind a surprised Kiba. She's here, she muttered without emotion, but her body was shaking in fear. Now, Kuroka, said Naruto, grabbing Kuroka's hand before she could run off for her sister. Give her some space. She seems frightened of your sudden presence. Naya? She could sense that Kaneko was shaking a little just by being so close to her. Her eyes went back to her king, who was smiling at her with compassion. Okay, Chiron. I'll talk with you later, Nya. What? Thought Kaneko as she peeked from behind Kiba's back. Kuroka was holding conversation with Naruto, Sona, and Rias as if she was uninterested in talking to her. She heard what the blonde boy in the wheelchair had said, but it surprised Kaneko that she actually listened to him. Who is he? Naruto was being wheeled by Orochimaru around the lawn, talking and shaking hands with everyone present. He even had a brief conversation with Issei and Saji before focusing back on the reason why he was here. I guess I've pushed this fight far too long, he said with a sigh. How? Are you ready? I was ready 10 minutes ago. Hao said with a twitching eyebrow. Alrighty then. Orochimaru, you can let me go now. I can do the rest by myself, he said as he started wheeling himself toward the middle of the field. Are you sure, Naruto-sama? Orochimaru asked with concern. Yup. Just sit back. He looked back at his peerage as a wicked grin grew on his face and watched the magic happen. Ha. Kuroka's ears deflated as she heard the tone in his voice. It was similar to his outburst he had yesterday. Naya. Be careful, she muttered. Naruto gave her a thumbs up before continuing to push himself closer to Hao. Phew, my arms are tired, he said as he stopped pushing himself. I guess now's the time to set up the barrier. Hao looked on and interested when Naruto summoned what seemed like small pieces of paper. Man, I haven't seen my spell tags in a while. They seem alright, no smudges or anything on them. Spell tags? Hao said out loud, like the ones that Anna uses. Who do you think taught her how to use them? Naruto asked. Hao rolled his eyes and didn't answer back. He wasn't there to look like a fool. Alrighty, and there. He threw his spell tags in the air, confusing everyone who was watching. Suddenly, the spell tags all flew in different directions of each other until they were far from the middle. They planted themselves into the ground and a blue dome started to grow over Naruto and Hao, large enough for the two to fly around even in the air. Impressive, said Hao as he studied the dome. It seemed sturdy enough to keep the others safe from their battle. Damn it, shouted Naruto. One of his wheels got stuck in some mud that was on the ground. He tried to push through it, but his wheel only snuck further into the mud blob. Now whose idea was it to put this right here? Here? This world is filled with idiots, I swear. Just like those catfish people. Enough, shouted Hao, sick and tired of hearing Naruto's meaningless banter. Are you here to fight, or are you here to complain? Naruto laughed at Hao. Alright, Hao. Since you're so worried, we can begin, he said. Naruto took a deep breath of air before concentrating. I still don't see how you're going to fight me in a wheelchair, the older Asakura said. see? You're still worrying about something that doesn't pertain to you, he. Naruto said as he continuing pushing up. You underestimate me, just because I was in a box for so long. A red hue surrounded Naruto's body before quickly disappearing. The blonde Bael grinned as his arms straightened, and he planted his feet on the ground. Naruto was now standing. How is this possible? Hao said with a scowl, hiding his internal shock. You were faking your injury this whole time. Naruto popped his neck a few times. No, injuries are real. Let's not worry about how I'm moving and let's get straight to it, shall we? Said Naruto with a closed-eye grin. Hao unfolded his arms and the spirit of fire phased behind him, towering over the two devils. I won't be going easy on you. Sadly for you. Naruto's devious smirk continued to grow. Neither will I. Naruto Bael, high-class full-blooded devil, king. Versus Hao Asakura, mid-class full-blooded devil, bishop. You can have the first move, my bishop. Naruto said without his usual eagerness. Hao stretched out his arm, shot a flaming ball of fire at Naruto. It didn't have any real power in it, he just wanted to use it as a testing ground on Naruto's abilities. Naruto responded by conjuring up some of his power of destruction, which caught Rias' interest, and countered with his own ball of power. The two orbs met in the middle of the field, causing a huge explosion to occur. Dust flew everywhere, covered the whole battleground. Hao's cloak swayed in the wind as he waited for Naruto to show himself from within the smoke screen. He raised an eyebrow when he saw Naruto running at him. He wasn't very fast, but it still surprised Hao, nevertheless. So you can run? Said Hao as he prepared to confront Naruto. I have legs, duh. Naruto laughed. Let me use them. I haven't moved in centuries. I want this fight to be fast-paced. He yelled. Naruto sent a barrage of punches and kicks at Hao, in which he dodged and blocked them all. These hits don't even have any real power behind them. He thought in disappointment as he caught Naruto's fist. You really are weak. You have no real strength behind your attacks. You're just saying that. With a sudden burst of strength that surprised Hao, Naruto pulled his fist back, aimed another one at his face. Sidestepping the attack, Hao pushed Naruto's arm out of the way and kicked upwards, intended to hit Naruto's chin. Using his other available hand, Naruto caught Hao's leg and lifted Hao's body from the ground, over Naruto's body, and back down onto the ground behind him. Hao coughed out blood from the force of the blow to his stomach. Whoa! Rias muttered as she watched from beyond the barrier. For such a weak-looking man, Naruto packed a punch. Naruto grinned before quickly jumping away as the spirit of fire stomped his foot where he once was. The monstrosity screeched and summoned a barrage of flaming meteors at the retreating Bael. Hao growled out as fire surrounded his arms before sending a massive steam of fire at Naruto. Ha 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 ha. Naruto laughed as he dodged the twin assault from the spirit of fire and Hao. Quickly jumping to the left to move out of the way from another flaming rock, Naruto sent a concentrated bolt of power of destruction at another meteor, cracking it down the middle and turning it to dust. Jumping through the middle of the dust storm, he was met with another blast of fire from Hao, in which he blocked all of it with a magic seal. Fucking bug! Hao muttered as he amped up the pressure of his flamethrowers. He wasn't visible to Naruto any longer as the flames were overtaking the both of them. Spirit of Fire screeched before stomping his way to where he sensed Naruto. He was in the middle of a field of flames, surrounding him in all angles. The Spirit of Fire dropped both its palms down on Naruto, but he used his swiftness to move out of the way. The fire beast's mouth opened wide and blasts another wave of flames at Naruto. Damn, it's hot in here! Shouted Naruto with a grin. He countered the flames with his power of destruction, which ate through the flames easily. What Naruto didn't suspect to happen was for the flames to mold together into Hao, who was smirking evilly at seeing Naruto's shocked face. Hao dropped the heel of his foot on Naruto's head, connecting with a large boom. That's new. whispered Naruto as he fell from the sky. Spirit of fire jetted from the flaming purgatory happening on the ground and snapped its mouth around Naruto, engulfing him complete. Naruto! Kuroka shouted in fear. It felt like her heart dropped when she saw that the fire beast ate her, king. He's still alive. I can feel it. Said How as he narrowed his eyes at the Spirit of Fire's chest. He won't be able to escape though. He's going to be melted in the fires inside of Spirit of Fire's chest, and then I'll absorb. Spirit of Fire coughed out black flames as his chest started to expand. How, in shock and pure instinct, conjured up a powerful barrier. Spirit of Fire cried out in pain before his body exploded in a shower of lava. Red aura blasted out in all directions, destroying any debris in range of its explosion. Phew. I think I burnt some calories while I was in there. Laughed Naruto. His black pants were singed in many places and his shirt was torn as well. Nice move, How. How growled again as he felt his magic levels dropped. Whenever Spirit of Fire is destroyed, my magic drops significantly. I'm going to have to fill Spirit of Fire's body with more magic if I need him to be used as a shield, if I want him to be able to tank one of his stronger attacks. He thought tactically before summoning Spirit of Fire behind him again. The spirit roared out as he gained a boost in magic with his revival. His skin glowed red more than what it usually did, and it held a homicidal look in its eyes. How? I know, it won't happen again. Said How, creating a small ball of fire in his hand before sending it to Naruto. Oh, is this a birthday gift? Said Naruto with a laugh before coating his fingertips with claw-like armor, made by his power of destruction. He sliced his arm through the air, and a blade of red magic soared at quick speeds, and sliced the small ball in half. He had to quickly summon a magic dome around him as the ball exploded like a massive bomb. His dome hit the barrier he constructed and continued to defend him from the fire outside it. The Spirit of Fire appeared below Naruto before grabbing his dome with his large hand and flew him down to the ground. Placing the dome under his feet, the spirit stomped on the dome when it came into contact with the ground. A large crater continued to grow as the spirit jumped on top of Naruto's dome repeatedly. Seems like someone woke up on, gasp, the wrong side of the bed. Naruto said with clenched teeth as he continued to feed his dome with magic. Magic. The Spirit of Fire's moves were considerably more powerful than they were before, and the fire around them was starting to get to Naruto as he was sweating more and more. How was flying over the two with another small ball within his hands. This is one he won't be able to block. He muttered as he concentrated on the flame. Spirit of Fire, get ready. The Spirit of Fire howled at Naruto, its face inches away from Naruto's own, his dome saving him from the beast's bad breath, and flew into the air. Flaming Purgatory! Shouted How as the small ball released a massive flamethrower of concentrated white flames. Shit! Shouted Naruto as he watched his doom closing and can't play with this one. Fuck defense. He released his dome and conjured up massive amount of magic before countering the flames with his power of destruction in the form of a massive beam. Both attacks met and clashed mid-air, and struggled against each other. Naruto groaned as the pressure from the struggle was pushing him further underground. Nevertheless, he pumped more magic into his destruction, as it was slowly eating at How's fire. Get him! Said How calmly. The Spirit of Fire groaned before pointing his large hands down at Naruto. Small missiles flew from his fingers and headed down to Naruto. Damn it! The young Bael said as he sensed the approaching missile. Seems like I've gotta abort. He said as his power of destruction flowed down to his feet. The missiles hit the ground around Naruto, causing miniature eruptions of fire. Naruto's power of destruction, which was fighting against Hao's white flames, started to waver before disappearing. Hao took to opportunity given to him and expanded his attack, losing the force it once had, but covered more ground. The earth below was painted in white flames as Hao continued to spray the area Naruto was at. He stopped his assault after a minute of hellfire before watching the earth below him, waiting for any sign of Naruto. "I don't sense his energy," said How. The spirit of fire grunted as he too was watching for any signals of Naruto. Suddenly, a couple of meters away from where Naruto once was, a hand popped out of the ground. Naruto slowly pulled himself out of the ground, before quickly rolling away from the hole he escaped out of. White flames erupted from the hole like a geyser, reaching heights that almost close to How in the air. After a few seconds, the eruption ceased and Naruto slowly flew his way up to How and the spirit of fire. "Man, oh man," he said with a smile. His face was filled with dirt from his adventure of digging underground to escape How's wrath. "That was a great warm-up." "A warm-up?" said How, almost laughing at his king. "You think that was a warm-up? You've taken more damage than I have, surely. You probably halved your magic reserves, but your body won't be able to take the pressure of this fight for long. You need to surrender." "And that's where you're wrong, How," said Naruto with a laugh. "You honestly think I became a war hero by surrendering? Come on now. I'm better than that." "Then show me." "You haven't shown me that yet. The only good look you got off of me was at the beginning of the fight," said How with a glare. "All right." Naruto dragged out with a shoulder shrug. "It's your funeral." With a cruel smirk, Naruto summoned and blasted a small ball of power of destruction at How. The spirit of fire quickly acted upon it and used his hand to block it from How. How's eyes widened when the spirit of fire's whole hand was blown off in an explosion of red. He covered his face with his arms as the strong aftershock of the attack pushed him back. He gritted his teeth and sent his magic to Spirit of Fire, so that he could recover from Naruto's attack. The sound of How's cloak tearing caught his ears. He turned his head to see Naruto tearing a piece off and wiping his face. "Thanks for this." How shouted at Naruto and engaged him. Naruto smirked while dodging How's fist and kicked him in his chest, causing the older Asakura to cough up spit. How quickly recovered and covered his fist in fire and tried to hit Naruto with a close-range flamethrower. Naruto grabbed both of How's arms and lifted them upwards, keeping him safe from the hot flames. The Bael kicked at How in his ribs, smirking when he heard a satisfying pop sound, before releasing How and kicking him down into the ground. Internally hurt, How smirked as he commanded the recovered Spirit of Fire to charge at Naruto, which he did almost instantaneously. Cocking its massive left hand back, the Spirit of Fire had the intent of breaking every bone in Naruto's body. Naruto smiled as he lifted his right fist up and coated it with his pod. He yelled out a battle cry as his fist met the Spirit of Fire's. The Spirit of Fire blew up in dazzling display of fire and red magic as Naruto's power of destruction that flowed from his hand destroyed the monster the instant he made contact with Naruto. How looked on in fear as his partner was destroyed again. "We're not finished, How!" shouted Naruto with a wicked grin as he flew down to the falling Asakura with a red hue surrounding him. "Gah!" shouted How as he summoned Spirit of Fire again, but this time he was summoned as his armor style, Black Fall Gear. How aimed his cannon at Naruto and shot a red laser filled with power at Naruto before flying away. Blocking the laser strike with his palm only, the red hue around Naruto grew brighter and brighter as he followed How in the air, dodging all of the fire bombs and lasers How was sending his way. Meanwhile, on the sidelines, the younger devils were watching the battle with wide eyes and awe. Issei had his mouth wide opened as he struggled to keep up with the speed the two older devils were moving at. "It's like watching an episode of Dragon Ball Z," he said as he followed the fight. "We were living in the same town with these monsters?" Saji said as he looked over to Naruto's peerage. Everyone other than Lee was following the fight closely, while Lee had some trouble keeping up. "He's amazing," said Orochimaru as he watched the fight. "It's like he was never injured. And he's not even at 100% yet, his body is still healing," muttered Anna as she sensed Naruto's power outage. Kuroka smirked at the others, before looking at the barrier that separated them from the battling devils on the other side. "They don't even notice," Naruto is such a genius, Naya. Naruto grinned at How as he closed the gap in between them. Red arms grew from the aura surrounding Naruto and caught the surprised How. He struggled to get free, but the arms held him down with an incredible strength. Gotcha! Shouted Naruto as flew done at How with his leg outstretched. Naruto foot entered Hao's stomach and a glob of blood shot out of Hao's mouth from the pressure. Naruto's red arms ripped Hao's armor off of before he flew and bounced off the barrier with a sick crunch. Ah! Ha! Shouted Hao as he landed on the ground. His senses kicked in again, but he couldn't move quick enough as a red hand erupted from the ground under him and grabbed his throat. The arm retreated back into the hole, but Hao's face was smashed into the ground. Hao coughed up more blood as he summoned his wings and flew away from the ground. "Where's that spunk you had earlier, Hao?" shouted Naruto as he flew over Hao. Hao gritted his teeth before focusing another fire blast at Naruto and increased his speed. Naruto slapped the fire blast away with no seemingly effort and followed Hao closely, wanting to see what he would do next. He followed the huffing Hao back on the ground and started to walk towards him. "I see the tables have turned," said Naruto as he stepped on the ground. The battlefield shook as his power coursed through it like it was nothing. Hao's legs buckled under him, but he stood his guard. "Are you sure you want to continue? Seems like the victor is clear as day to me." "Shut up!" shouted Hao uncharacteristically as he outstretched both of his hands, both of them touching at the wrist. Another stream of fire soared at Naruto with the intent to kill, but Naruto's red aura destroyed the fire before it could even harm him. Hao sweated as he continued to pour more magic into his flames, but they seemingly bounced off of Naruto like it was nothing. "After all that talk of you calling me weak." Naruto shook his head with a chuckle as he continued to walk through the stream of pressurized flames. "Seems that was all a fake." "I said shut up." Hao yelled again. Naruto finally made it to Hao and grabbed his hands once again. Leaning back and then quickly rearing forward, Naruto headbutted Hao with the force of a raging bull. Hao stepped back, a little disoriented, before recovering. He gripped his fist together and engaged Naruto in hand-to-hand combat, starting with a swift punch to Naruto's stomach. Naruto ignored the blow and elbowed Hao's face, followed by a kick to his stomach. Hao hands blasted a strong wave of fire, which broke the momentum of Naruto's kick, and sped towards him with a flying kneecap. Naruto sidestepped the blow, went for punch at Hao's side, but Hao caught it well in air. Fire now sprouted out of Hao's feet as he swung around Naruto, until he had premium position behind his opponent with their arm behind his back. "Surrender," Hao said with anger as he held an orb of flames in his other hand and placed it close to Naruto's back. The heat was burning through Naruto's clothes and started to cook his skin, but Naruto didn't care. "Dumbass," he muttered. Two red hands broke out from the ground and captured Hao's ankles for themselves. The ground weakened underneath Hao, thanks to Naruto flooding it with his pod, and Hao was pulled underground by the arms. Naruto laughed to himself for a while as his hands dragged Hao through the rugged underground soil before pulling him above ground. The moment Hao's arm was out from the ground, the same orb he had used to threaten Naruto was used as his next attack as he threw it at Naruto while he hung upside down. Naruto quickly summoned a shield to block the attack, but his eyes widened in surprise when the orb quickly transformed into the head and neck of the Spirit of Fire, its mouth wide open. It swallowed Naruto once again before the rest of its body materialized, but it was much smaller than what it usually was. "Spirit of Fire, overheat!" shouted Hao as he broke away from Naruto's red hands. The Spirit of Fire groaned as its body convulsed and superheated itself, the lava inside of its stomach boiling hot. Volcanic gases rushed out of the spirit's nose as it glowed a deadly red. The ground below it melted into a pool of lava as it continued to heat up. "He couldn't have survived that," Hao said with a deep breath of air. While he wouldn't be able to absorb Naruto's energy, since he literally melted Naruto's being, he had won the The spirit of fire's mouth was forced open as a hand shot out of it. Naruto, his red aura protecting him from the heat, jumped out of the spirit's mouth before flying off in haste, away from the fire duo. Hao's eyes widened. He felt a large amount of magic centering inside of his partner's stomach. He summoned his wings and quickly flew away as the spirit of fire imploded on itself in display of fire. The nearby barrier couldn't survive the heat as it was destroyed by the blast, but it slowly reformed after the blast. Hao sighed as he felt the drop of his magic reserves once again. Naruto was pushing him to limits he didn't know he had. Damn it, if this continues, I'll lose. I agree, said Naruto as he landed in front of him. This battle, while it was fun at the beginning, started to get boring over time. I'd rather be back in my seal, talking to you about how you shouldn't kill weak people, he said with a laugh. Hold on, since you losing, shouldn't that mean I should kill you? You are pretty weak right now. Hao's anger was evident on his face as he took off his tattered cloak before rushing to Naruto in blind anger. Naruto smirked as he crossed his arms, unafraid of the boy in front of him. He clicked his tongue to the top of his mouth and stabbed the heel of his foot into the ground. Ice sprouted from his foot and danced over the surface of the ground, eating at any random fires in its way. The ice sped towards Hao as he was about to set his right foot back on the ground. His foot slipped on the ice, and he fell head first into it. Tick, 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 Hao, said Naruto as he walked over to Hao's tattered body. He wasn't moving at all and his hair was covering his face. You used to act calm and collected, now you're just a madman who struggles to understand that there will be weak people in the world. He stopped in front of Hao's body and bent down to his level. He picked up Hao by his hair and pulled upwards, revealing Hao's face. His nose was broken and blood was pouring from it like a river, but he still had the strength to glare at Naruto, even if it wasn't as strong as his other glares. It took 8 years for me to convince you to turn from your ways, and I didn't judge you one time throughout that whole experience. But then you judge me the first time you see me. Hee, now isn't that funny? Hao gritted his teeth and conjured up his remaining magic. You fool. Said Naruto, tilting his head sideways in confusion. Yo, you can't even notice that this was a distraction. The newly and superpowered spirit of fire coated his massive hands in white flames, before clasping them together and dropped them down onto the duo in a fiery sledgehammer. A purple dome protected Naruto and Hao from the blow. Naruto shook his head in disappointment. That was a suicide blow. You're lucky that I'm smarter than you, he. Naruto laughed. You won't be able to sustain the spirit of fire's form anyway. Naruto used his free hand and flicked it a few times. Hao's body jerked a few times before his feeling in his arms and legs were gone. My magic is inside your body, messing with your control. You've lost. The spirit of fire screeched one last time before slowly fading away, no longer sustained by Hao's magic. Hao himself was looking at Naruto with a dead stare, his brown eyes glued to Naruto's blue. Do you surrender? Asked Naruto. Hao groaned before using the rest of his energy to nod his head. Naruto smiled and chopped the back of Hao's head, knocking him out. WHHH hey he www. That was fun. Naruto's childlike demeanor came back with full force as a cheeky grin spread across his face. I'm hungry. He snapped his fingers and the barrier started fade away. His spell tags flew back towards him, and he put them away in their seal. I wonder what's on TV. Nobody from Rias and Sona's peerages could move as they watched Naruto walk back over to them. The fight they just witnessed was a monstrosity. The power and ki that entered their beings during the fight was indescribable for such young devils, and couldn't process everything. Ria shook when Naruto was walking towards them, her heart beating faster and faster in fear of being in the same presence of this monster. This man. This is the power of the older devils? I don't even want to know the things he had to do in order to get that strong. Her mouth dried up when Naruto pasted by her like she was nothing, and she felt that way too. If Naruto ever decided to rebel, she was sure that she wouldn't be able to stand against him for a whole minute before succumbing to death. I guess I should drop the other barrier too, muttered Naruto as he stretched out. Other barrier? Sona managed to speak her thoughts, but fear was still coursing through her body. That man was incredibly strong. She wasn't even sure if her sister could fight against the Bael. Naruto started to laugh at himself. It seems like only my protege noticed it, isn't that right? He said with a grin at Kuroka. She winked at him before joining him in laughter. Oh ho ho. Just watch this part, said Naruto excitedly. He snapped his fingers. Hao gasped for breath as his eyes opened. He hurriedly looked around him to see where he was. He was currently standing in the middle of the same spot he was in while waiting for Naruto to wheel himself towards him and set up the barrier. What is going on? He said to himself. Naya. Look at them, Naruto. They're like little lost puppies. Kuroka's voice entered his ears, and he looked over to where the barrier once was. His eyes widened in anger as he saw both Kuroka and Naruto was laugh at everyone, who also had confused looks on their faces. Wait, he said as he studied Naruto. He was still in his wheelchair, with no noticeable damage done to him. His clothes were still intact, and he was positioned outside of where the barrier once was. What did you do? Shouted Hao in anger as he stomped over to them. He coughed when he realized that he was extremely tired and low on magic. He dropped to one knee as he continued his coughing fit. What happened to us? Asked Orochimaru as he looked down at his laughing master. What happened? Naruto laughed out. Nothing happened, he ha ha. I was here the whole time. What? Everyone other than Kuroka shouted. He was there the whole time. This needs an explanation, said Sona as she pushed up her glasses. How did this fight not happen? The field you used fight is obviously destroyed with fire and uprooted in many places. Because Hao thought he was fighting me. He said with a smile. He thought he was fighting me, because I set the illusion up that he was fighting me, but I was watching him dance around the field like a little child the whole time. How did you make us believe that? Asked Orochimaru. I never felt a disturbance with my senses. Because I already had my magic in you. Remember these? Orange orbs phased out of the chest of Naruto's peerage members. I planted these in you all so that you could have a better connection with my energy, while I was in my seal. I just used that energy to influence you all into believe that the fight was real, but it was all just an illusion. And what about the second barrier you talked about? Anna asked. That's what activated the illusion. I set it up the moment I arrived here, and activated before I made my way into the protective barrier where the battle was held. Genius, right? He ha 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 ha. And us? Asked Akino. When did you have the time to put your magic into all of us? I shook everyone's hand before the fight, did I not? Asked with a tilted head. I did it then and you all suspected nothing. He. That's insane, for you to be able to construct something like that right under our noses. Sona muttered, feeling very weak. And the only person who found out about this was your queen? Yup. My protege is super strong, so of course she could sense it right off the bat. Answered Naruto with a smile. It was funny seeing Hao fly around, running from his own shadow, Naya. Laughed Kuroka. That's fucking awesome. Shouted Kisame, highly impressed with Naruto's abilities. I was going to jump into the fight whenever you two were done, but not anymore. Hell no. I've had my fill for the day. This is fucking incredible. This is really, really hard to believe right now. Said Tsubaki. What about the time when you brought Hao underground with your arms? That was all fake. Just look at Hao's cloak. See how it isn't tattered up? And remembered when I tore it to wipe my face. He actually discarded it towards the end of his fake fight, and look at him now. He has it on. It's magic, I tell you, ah ha 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 ha. Your wheelchair doesn't have mud on it. Anna muttered. Everyone checked and sure enough, his wheelchair was spotless. I feel very weak right now, said Kiba as he shook his head. This is crazy, too crazy for one day. How gritted his teeth as he punched the ground with a lot of force, denting it. I was fighting a shadow, this whole time. I was shooting fire at fucking air. You sure was, said Naruto as he surprisingly stood from his wheelchair again. He disappeared in a burst of speed and appeared over Hao. He kicked Hao under his chin, causing the boy to fly in the air and land on his back. But now it's time for your punishment. Naruto stomped his foot on Hao's stomach. Hao coughed up blood while looking up at his master in fear. Naruto was looking down at Hao with indifference, just waiting on him to rebel. I was nothing but nice to you, Hao. I waited 8 years for you, and this is the thanks I get. Naruto's ki was flooding Hao's sense and he shivered in fear. How disgraceful. I am sorry, Naruto-sama, said Hao in repentance. I've learned my lesson. Please forgive me. You don't deserve forgiveness, shouted Naruto as he stomped on Hao's stomach, causing him to vomit another glob of blood. Everyone looks at the scene uncomfortably. How could a person that was always happy turn into this? I'm debating on if I should kill you right now. Naruto let his words hang as everyone digested them with shock. Naruto? Said Kuroka with uncertainty. What is he doing? He never acts like this. Naruto-sama. Yo appeared next to his weakened brother and looked up to his king with a pleading look. Look, he gets it, okay? He knows what he did wrong. It won't happen again. I don't think so, growled Naruto as a red hue covered his whole body, except for his right leg, which was pinning Hao down to the ground. I don't take it lightly that you tried to kill me. I gave you my trust. I expected you to be my family. And yet you still do something like this. Naruto. Kuroka was slowly making her way towards the three boys. The rest of Naruto's peerage was behind her. I don't think you want to do this. Just let Hao go, he understands what he did. Don't tell me what to do, Kuroka. Naruto growled, halting Kuroka in her tracks. This man tried to kill me. Do you know what happened to the last person who tried to kill me, Naruto's aura started to dance wildly around him. The earth shook beneath him as he looked down upon Hao like he was nothing. The last person who tried to do that to me was during the Civil War and I turned him into nothingness. Okay, Naruto. Kuroka cried out, but please don't kill him. This isn't you. Naruto glared at his queen, which broke her heart into a million pieces, but she stays strong, not dropping eye contact with him. That's your family member, Naruto. She said to him, you always said you couldn't wait to see everyone for yourself one day. This isn't what you taught me, Naya. Kuroka noticed that his eyes weakened at her words before turning back to Hao. It seems I've found some type of mercy, Hao. Thank, Naruto-sama. Yo said with a bow, trying his best to keep from shaking while under pressure of Naruto's ki. Don't thank me too early. He'll still be punished, he said as he looked down at Hao with disinterest. You called me weak while I was sick. Then your punishment shall be the same. Naruto's red aura went down his leg and surrounded Hao's body. After a few seconds, Hao's skin started to crack and crinkle. His breathing hitched as the strength he once disappeared in an instant. His skin was clutching to his bones, his lips dried up, and his face grew wrinkles. All in all, he looked the same way Naruto did when he was freed from his seal. Your punishment is my own struggle. Your pride is what's going to torture you. You'll stay like this for a while, said Naruto as he removed his foot from Hao's stomach. Wah. How did you do this? Said Yo as he watched his brother struggle to breath. I'm cutting of his blood flow, giving him the bare minimum to live. I also destroyed a lot of his stored nutrients he had, as well as any food in his system. That's his punishment. Naruto picked Hao up by his cloak and dragged him back to the sidelines. His peerage members created a path for their king, not brave enough to stop him. Naruto threw Hao into his wheelchair, making him wheeze out in pain. My peerage, come! He shouted. They made their way to their master while a magic seal engulfed them until they were gone, leaving Sona, Rias, and the other younger devils to finally be able to let go of a breath they all didn't know they were holding in. Naruto's peerage house. The peerage and king appeared in the living room. Naruto ignored his followers and made his way up the stairs and back into his room. He closed the door behind him and started to strip down until he was his boxers. Putting back on his gym pants that he slept in, Naruto entered his bed before unraveling his bandages around his wrist and stomach. He connects his water and food tube back into his stomach, and then inserted his blood transfusion needles into a vein, not even wincing at the sharp pain. He tapped his heart monitor to his chest and turned the machine on. Finally, he placed his breathing machine back on his face and turned the machine on as well. He took a deep breath as he laid back into his bed and closed his eyes, entering his slumber. He was all alone that night. Kuroka didn't sleep next to him like she usually did. His stomach rose as he took in air, before deflating shortly after. Beep. 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 That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.